Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sharks Alumni Rewind presented by SAP. I am Ted Ramey, the host of Morning Tide on the Sharks Audio Network, and I am here inside the SAP suite in the arena, and it's great to be back here in the building. And we are lucky enough to be joined by Sharks alumni Kyle McLaren. Kyle, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Just enjoying the Sharks game tonight. Hoping they come back from tonight, but just enjoying the game right now.
Yeah, man. One of the things that I want to ask is we all think about you and your violent hip checks. I mean, that's something that we often think about when we talk about your career
Yep.
in a rivalry game like this. When do you use that? When do you come in hard or come in hot? Because you don't want to set the other team off, but you
Yep.
also want to set the tone. And I would imagine oftentimes that was kind of pressed on you to be one of those tone setters.
You mean just like a nice hit or a nice fight can change the momentum of a game. So, I mean, it's basically all timing. I mean, if you have a chance to hit somebody like that, I mean, the players these days from when I played, 10 years ago, they're a lot smarter. Their heads are up a little bit more. There's less hitting, as you can see. But you know what? I'd still, there's sometimes I watch the Sharks games. And I'm like, ooh, there'd be a great hip check right there. And, you know what? Again, it changes the momentum of the game, just like a nice fight or a nice goal or a nice penalty kill. But I mean, I do miss being on the ice, being able to hip check people.
Does your blood still get up for rivalry games like this when the Sharks are playing Vegas? Obviously, you never had the chance to
Yep.
play the Knights, but I would imagine that teal is still in the veins to an extent.
Oh yeah, when you mean when I watch the Sharks play the Kings, Colorado, you mean Anaheim, Dallas. I mean the blood definitely boils. Even Nashville, St. Louis. I mean, again, it's almost every team feels like a rivalry to me. But those are the main ones. Is you mean LA and all the California teams? Because you always want to one up them.
If we look at what we saw in that first period, you're back in the dressing room right now. If you're in this position, what's the first thing you got to work on for the Sharks to get themselves back into the game?
Well, you got to start shooting the puck to me a little bit more. Put the puck on net. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. It just seems like they're a step behind in the first period. But there's nothing they can't get out of. I mean, they had a nice couple kills, a couple odd penalties against them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that penalty. I mean, there should be a penalty on Couture, not on Couture, but what was his name? Not Pietrangelo, the other one. But before even Couture got his penalty. So to me, it's there's some calls that have gone wrong against them. But again, is they're playing well? They just need to shoot the puck on more and get more people in front of the net.
Was it hard for you when you didn't feel like the refs were calling it the way that you were seeing it, or was it just like I can't focus on that stuff? I've got to go out there and work on my game?
Oh, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, again, it's the refs going to call what they see. And if they miss something as a player, they miss something. But I mean, you hopefully with the 2 referee system or the 4 referee system, they see everything on the ice. But clearly, they missed that one call. So, I mean, the Sharks killed it. I mean, and they got to move forward. You can't rely on the past. You have to move forward.
So let's look at the past, though, with you, not in this particular game, because we've got a lot left to play. But I'm curious, you came from Boston, and, a lot of people view that as, one of the various meccas of hockey. And I think that people who haven't been out here, they don't understand the culture of San Jose hockey, and maybe they're not prepared for how kind of rabid the fan base is here in San Jose. Were you surprised when you came out here just at how kind of intense it was? Because I've heard from other NHL players that, their first trip to San Jose, they're kind of expecting chill, relax, Bay Area. And they were like, oh, those fans are kind of nasty in that building.
Yep. Yeah. You think about San Jose and you almost think about almost like Santa Cruz base of surfers and relax and, all blonde haired, tanned out. But when I was playing is you heard them. And probably the first time we were in the playoffs coming through that shark head is the fans are loud. And that's the thing is everyone that comes in the building as a player always says, you know what, this is one of the loudest arenas, especially in the playoffs for fans. And I agree with that. Is that gets your blood just kind of juicing a little bit more. And when you hear those fans, when you come to that shark head on the ice, it's amazing.
How long did it take for it to feel like home? Like when you were skating out from the Sharks
Yeah.
Head, that it felt like that they were screaming for you.
First game. First game for me. The first game I felt welcome when I was here, to the last game I felt welcome when I was here. And that's what amazing about these Sharks is the Sharks fans, they love their players. They get totally involved in who's getting the Barracuda, the Sharks. But they fall in love with they fall in love with their players.
Yeah, they really do here. And that's an interesting culture. And I've talked to some people about it and they say, oh, there's such loyalty in the Bay Area with their sports teams and, they really glom onto their players. I'm
Yep.
sure that you still get that. Like there's people, I imagine they talk to you, they still have an affinity
Yep.
for you and your days here in Team Teal,
Yep.
even if it's been a little while, 10 years,
Yep.
like you alluded to.
Yeah, no, I get recognized almost, I wouldn't say everywhere I go. But a lot of the times, and a lot of people know who I am, and it feels nice because there's a lot of true fans here that grew up with a team from when they first came to San Jose, and even the new fans that go back and watch the games back in the history. Olin Nolan, Mike Rathje, Nabokov. A lot of the players have been retired for a while, but all the new fans that know those guys just from watching film and watching the games and watching the history of the Sharks.
Were those names, were culture, was that something that was talked about when you joined the organization?
Yep.
I mean, I know people, this team is 30 years old now, so you don't have the same history as some of the other clubs do.
Yep.
But it feels to me like these names and some of the founding members, and obviously with Doug Wilson, still being a part of the franchise, I would imagine
Yep.
that there's a push towards a certain ideology.
Yeah, that's why we that's why we established an alumni now. We've had alumni for a couple of years because we have more players that have come through the Sharks organization. And to me, like Doug Wilson, Mike Ricci, Jamie Baker, Patty Falloon. There's a lot of great players that came through here that are Sharks alumni. And that's what we want to do is establish something that is not just 30 years old, but it's going to continue for another 30 or 60 or 90 years old, or past that. We're basically building the building blocks for the Sharks players that come up now and for the older ones coming in.
Well, what's amazing to me is I go back, I was 9 years old when the franchise started, and
Yep.
there weren't a lot of opportunities to play hockey. It was kind of,
Yep.
if you were getting up at 4 a.m. and going to ring, stuff like that. And my dad was working in sports as well, so his mornings were often busy, and just it wasn't much of an option. And
Yep.
now it is like it's much more the culture. It's much more the norm for kids to grow up
Yep.
in the Bay Area, which it's not like there's a pond that freezes over in their backyard here, but there's much more of that normalized culture to have
Yep.
that opportunity to grow up playing hockey.
Yeah, when I grew up in Canada, in a small town, there's always opportunity for a rink somewhere in the wintertime. And now that the Sharks, the junior Sharks or the Sharks Ice is building more rinks for more opportunity for players or younger players, the new athletes coming in to start playing hockey. Because again, it's 30 years old, but when you look at hockey terms, it's kind of short. But again, they're building their building blocks to get more people in the rink to learn how to play hockey. So there's homegrown talent, and I love it.
Yeah. What's your favorite moment of your playing career as a member of the San Jose Sharks?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's a few. Most of my hip checks, there's a few. Kyanek from St. Louis. There's a few highlights that I have. But to me, it's every game that I go through that Shark Head, knowing the fans have your back and playing with the players I played was probably the most memorable time I ever have.
I gotta bring up one moment though, and I was going through some stuff on YouTube to try and find some of your checks, and there was you banging into Drew Remenda pretty hard as
Yes.
you were doing a segment. You didn't go too soft on him either, though. I was laughing pretty hard. I'd forgotten about that till I found it.
The first hit I hit him, he's like, "Did you lighten up?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I want to hurt you," and he says, "No, just trust me, just do it." I said, "Okay." I'm like, "You told me to go full tilt. I'll go full tilt." And he had bruises. He had bruises on his body for about a week and a half, and I haven't heard. He could still have bruises. Who knows? But that was one of the most funnest times I had on film with him.
It's great. It's great video. It was very entertaining for
Yep.
me. So
Yep.
maybe not as entertaining for him. I'm
Right.
curious now when you think back on all your moments, if there aren't, you think back to those moments going out of the Sharks' head. Are there other certain games that you think back to and you think like, man, like we were playing at our peak? Or there's certain
Yep.
stretches or moments? Are there certain standout situations that kind of stick out more than others?
You mean it's almost the playoff failures that we had, is we get in the playoffs on a roll. I think we were up 3-1 against Detroit in the series, and they came back and beat us. And I can tell you when I was on the ice, when they scored the game-winning goal, but it's not winning. It's not going to the finals in my years. I know they made the finals after I was gone, but it wasn't. That was my biggest, basically, disappointment of not getting the Sharks to the finals and actually over that hump, because we had some talented teams in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And that was my biggest thing. But again, I loved everything we did, but my biggest disappointment is not getting to that freaking Stanley Cup finals.
And that's something I've talked to about a lot of athletes is you can bring up all the accomplishments, all the good things, but
Yeah.
you're focusing on something that was not one of the great things that you did over the course of your career. And I don't even mean that it's
Yeah.
not great, but it's like every year there can only be one team that
Yep.
wins. And like it's funny though to hear
Yep.
you say that's where your mind is going to, not all the
Yep.
great things that you did, but something that's
Yep.
still out there.
Yeah, no, it's something that, like I said, we had some great teams back in the day, very talented, hardworking teams, and just not getting over that hump. And there was always one thing or two things that kept us hitting that roadblock or hitting that brick wall that we couldn't break through. And that's one of the biggest things from the Sharks is but again, is that they keep trying, and that's the thing I love about this team right now is they're not winning as many games as I want them to,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no give up.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pushing through, and they're a younger team than past teams. I mean, Thornton's gone, Pavelski's gone. So again, is now the new identity is a lot younger, which I love watching. And I think they're gonna push through it. Hopefully this year, but you never know.
You look at the second period coming up here, and you got young legs, you got some guys that are still trying to prove themselves, and then you've got Erik Karlsson, you've got Evander Kane, you've got Logan Couture. A 2-0 deficit to me is nothing this team isn't capable of coming back from, and they've shown they have the ability to do it so far this year.
Yeah, they have. I mean, again, it's just getting everyone on board. I mean, they have to stop eliminating their giveaways and score when they have the chances on the power play, and then play solid defense. I mean, that's what they have to do. It's basically it's a team game, and that's one of the biggest things about this team is there's not one individual, in my opinion, that dominates. It has to be everyone.
Is it a coach saying anything during the intermission? Is it the captain? Is it a teammate? Is there anything that can spark the guys right now before they come out there for that second? Or is it just everybody knowing, hey, we got to come out here, play as a team, and do our job?
Well, I don't think they played that bad. So that's the thing is stay with it. Stay within the system. Say what you're coached. Say what you're taught, and do your job. So, again, we'll see if they can stick to it. But, I mean, don't veer off the plan. I mean, there's a plan for the Sharks. And if they stay with it and stick to it, then they should be fine.
What are you going to be looking for here in the first 4 or 5 minutes from the Sharks when they come out for the second period?
I want to see them shoot more. I mean, again, they shot the puck, but put traffic in front of the net. You mean this is their third string goalie?
For Vegas, yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? He's young, he's inexperienced. Make him feel uncomfortable, and that's what I want to see.
All right, well, be sure to join me and Kyle during the intermission after the second period here on Sharks Alumni Rewind, brought to you by SAP. We're going to take a break, but again, join us after the second period here again on Sharks Alumni Rewind.